The diplomatic vessel UES Meridian cut through the darkness of space toward the Kepler 442 system. Ambassador Jake Morrison stood in his private quarters, staring at the reports spread across his desk. Each page told the same terrible story. The Zephyrian hegemony had surrounded 3 human colonies and demanded complete surrender. Morrison rubbed his tired eyes and picked up another file. The aliens had given humanity 72 hours to abandon their settlements or face total destruction. 300 alien warships waited in perfect formation around New Eden Colony. Each ship carried enough firepower to turn an entire planet into smoking glass. A soft chime indicated someone at his door. Morrison looked up as Captain Lisa Kane entered the room. She carried a steaming cup of coffee, and her face showed the strain of the past week. "Any new intelligence from the scouts?" Morrison asked, as he accepted the coffee gratefully. Kane shook her head and sat down across from his desk. "Nothing good. The Zephyrians have positioned themselves perfectly. Every escape route is blocked, and their weapons are targeting our civilian centers. If we try to evacuate the colonies, they will see it as an act of aggression." Morrison studied the tactical displays on his wall screen. The alien fleet formed a deadly web around the human settlements. The Zephyrians were known throughout the galaxy as master strategists. In over 1,000 years of expansion, they had never lost a single war. Their blue-skinned warriors stood 7 feet tall and treated warfare like an art form. "What about our own fleet?" Morrison asked, though he already knew the answer would disappoint. "Him. Admiral Martinez has gathered every available ship," Kane replied. "We have maybe 30 vessels that could reach the system in time. The aliens outnumber us 10 to 1, and their technology is at least 50 years ahead of ours." Morrison set down his coffee and walked to the viewport. Stars stretched past as the Meridian continued its journey toward what many believed would be humanity's final diplomatic mission. 50 million civilians lived on the 3 colonies. Men, women, and children who had traveled across the galaxy to build new lives on distant worlds. "Tell me about the Zephyrians again," Morrison said. "I want to understand who we are dealing with." Kane pulled up a holographic display showing the alien species. The projection showed a tall humanoid figure with metallic blue skin and 4 arms. Their faces were angular with large eyes that seemed to glow with inner light. "They call themselves the chosen warriors of the galaxy," Kane explained. "Their entire society revolves around military conquest and honor in battle. They believe that strength is the only virtue that matters and that weak species deserve to be dominated or destroyed." Morrison nodded slowly. He had dealt with warrior cultures before, but never one with such overwhelming military superiority. The Zephyrians viewed any attempt at negotiation as a sign of weakness. They respected only those who could match their strength in battle. Their leader in this sector is War Master Thexavar, Kane continued. "He has personally conquered over 40 star systems. Intelligence reports suggest he sees humanity as nothing more than another primitive species to be crushed under his heel." A new voice interrupted their conversation. Dr. Rachel Kim entered the room carrying a portable computer. As Morrison's chief aide, she had been analyzing Zephyrian culture and psychology for months. "I have been studying their communication patterns," Kim said as she activated her device. "The Zephyrians do not understand concepts like compromise or mutual benefit. In their language, there are dozens of words for different types of victory, but only one word for surrender." Morrison felt a cold knot forming in his stomach. How could he negotiate with a species that viewed any outcome except total victory as complete failure? The reports from other diplomatic contacts were uniformly grim. The Zephyrians would listen to offers of surrender, but they had never accepted any other terms. "There has to be something," Morrison said. "Every species has weaknesses or blind spots. What do we know about their military doctrine?" Kim pulled up another display showing Zephyrian battle formations. "They prefer overwhelming force applied quickly and decisively. Their tactics have not changed significantly in centuries because they have never needed to adapt. When you always win through superior firepower, there is no reason to develop new strategies. Kane leaned forward in her chair. That could be important. Species that never face real challenges sometimes become rigid in their thinking. They might not know how to respond to unexpected situations. Morrison felt a small spark of hope. It was not much, but it was something to work with. He had built his reputation on finding creative solutions to impossible diplomatic situations. The key was always to understand what the other side truly wanted and find ways to give it to them. "What about their internal politics?" Morrison asked. "Are there any factions within their government that might be more reasonable?" Kim shook her head. "The hegemony is a strict military hierarchy. War Master Thexvar answers only to the Supreme Commander and the War Council. Individual Zephyrians can disagree with orders, but they would never act against their chain of command." Morrison walked back to his desk and picked up a datapad containing his official instructions from Earth Command. The orders were simple and impossible. He was to negotiate the safe evacuation of 50 million colonists while preventing a war that humanity could not possibly win. A communication alert sounded, and Admiral Carlos Martinez appeared on the main screen. The aging commander looked exhausted, and his uniform showed signs of having been worn for days without change. "Morrison, we are running out of time," Martinez said without preamble. "The Zephyrian deadline is in 18 hours. Our fleet is in position, but we both know how this will end if shooting starts." Morrison straightened his shoulders. "I understand, Admiral. How long until we reach their flagship?" 6 hours, Martinez replied. "The aliens have agreed to receive you aboard their command vessel. They are calling it the Sovereign's Fist. Intel suggests it is one of the largest warships ever built." The connection ended, and Morrison turned back to his companions. Kane was studying the tactical displays, while Kim continued her analysis of Zephyrian culture. Both women had volunteered for this mission knowing they might not return. "I want you both to prepare backup plans," Morrison said. "If these negotiations fail completely, we need options for getting our people to safety." Kane nodded grimly. "I will coordinate with our escort ships. We might be able to create enough confusion for some civilian transports to escape." Kim closed her computer and stood up. "I will keep analyzing their psychology. There has to be something we can use, some way to make them see reason." Morrison watched them leave and then returned to his reports. Somewhere in the data about Zephyrian military history and cultural practices, there had to be an answer. He refused to believe that 50 million human lives could be sacrificed without even attempting a real solution. The Meridian continued its journey through space, carrying humanity's last hope toward an appointment with an alien species that had never known defeat. The Sovereign's Fist dwarfed every human ship Morrison had ever seen. The massive Zephyrian dreadnought stretched for miles in every direction, with weapon emplacements covering its dark hull like deadly stars. Smaller escort vessels surrounded the flagship in perfect military formation. Each one could destroy the Meridian without effort. Morrison stood in the shuttle bay, adjusting his formal diplomatic uniform. Dr. Rachel Kim checked her recording equipment one final time, while Captain Kane reviewed security protocols with the small escort team. Everyone knew this meeting could determine the fate of 50 million human lives. "Remember, they respect strength above all else," Kim whispered as alien guards approached their shuttle. "Show no fear even if they try to intimidate you." The Zephyrian soldiers were even more imposing in person than in the intelligence reports. Each warrior stood over 7 feet tall with metallic blue skin that seemed to shimmer under the harsh lighting. Their forearms moved with perfect coordination as they gestured for the humans to follow. Morrison walked between the alien guards through corridors that spoke of military might and absolute authority. The walls displayed weapons taken from conquered species, and battle standards from dozens of defeated civilizations. Everything was designed to remind visitors that the Zephyrians had never lost a war. The meeting chamber occupied the heart of the massive ship. Curved walls rose toward a domed ceiling covered in star charts, showing the extent of Zephyrian territory. At the center of the room stood a raised platform where War Master Thexvar waited with his senior officers. The alien commander was larger than his subordinates, with scars that marked him as a veteran of countless battles. His eyes glowed with an inner light that seemed to evaluate Morrison like a predator studying potential prey. When he spoke, his voice carried the authority of someone accustomed to absolute obedience, human diplomat. Thexvar began in heavily accented but clear English. "You have requested this audience to hear the terms of your surrender. The hegemony has been generous in allowing your species time to consider your situation." Morrison stepped forward with his hands clasped behind his back in a gesture of respect, but not submission. He had studied Zephyrian body language extensively and knew that any sign of weakness would end the negotiations immediately. "War Master Thexvar." Morrison replied with a slight bow. "I am Ambassador Jake Morrison, representing the United Earth Alliance and the human colonies in this sector. I have come to discuss the future relationship between our species." The alien commander's eyes narrowed slightly at Morrison's choice of words. Around the chamber, other Zephyrian officers shifted positions in what Morrison recognized as defensive postures. They had expected pleas for mercy, not talk of relationships. "There will be no relationship," Thexvar stated flatly. "There are only the terms of your submission. Your species has 72 hours to evacuate all military personnel from the 3 colonies. Civilian populations will remain to serve the hegemony. All human technology and resources will be transferred to Zephyrian control." Morrison felt his stomach clench but kept his expression neutral. The terms were even worse than Earth Command had expected. The aliens were not just demanding surrender, but complete subjugation of the human colonies. Additionally, Thexvar continued, "Your species will provide annual tribute of half your total industrial output and military resources. Human ships will be restricted to designated shipping lanes under Zephyrian oversight. Any violation of these terms will result in the complete destruction of all human settlements." Kim stepped slightly closer to Morrison as she recorded every word of the ultimatum. "The terms would essentially reduce humanity to slave status with no hope of future independence." Morrison realized that the Zephyrians viewed humans as nothing more than useful animals to be domesticated. "I understand your position, War Master," Morrison said carefully. "However, I cannot accept these terms on behalf of my people. Instead, I would like to offer you something far more valuable than our surrender." The reaction in the chamber was immediate. Several Zephyrian officers reached for their weapons while others made threatening gestures with their forearms. Thexvar himself seemed stunned that any species would dare refuse the terms of the mighty hegemony. "You dare to refuse our generous offer?" One of the subordinate officers growled in a voice that sounded like grinding metal. "Your pathetic species should be grateful. We do not simply destroy your worlds immediately." Morrison raised one hand in a calming gesture while maintaining eye contact with Thexvar. He could see confusion and anger warring in the War Master's glowing eyes. This was clearly not how these meetings usually proceeded. "I mean no disrespect to the hegemony or your military might," Morrison continued. "But I believe both our species could benefit from a different arrangement. One that would make the Zephyrians even more powerful than they already are." Thexvar studied Morrison for long moments while the tension in the chamber grew thick enough to cut with a knife. The other alien officers waited for their commander's signal to either continue negotiations or eliminate the insolent humans. "You speak of making us more powerful," Thexvar said slowly. "This is either the greatest foolishness I have ever heard, or you possess knowledge that could change everything. Explain yourself human." Morrison felt a small surge of relief. The War Master was at least willing to listen, which was more than he had dared hope for. Now came the most dangerous part of his plan. He had to reveal enough to intrigue the aliens without giving away humanity's true capabilities. "What I propose requires private discussion between leaders," Morrison said. "I request a private audience with you, War Master. What I have to share could benefit the entire hegemony, but it is not suitable for open declaration." The chamber erupted in angry voices as Zephyrian officers protested the unusual request. In their culture, military matters were always discussed openly among the warrior caste. Private meetings suggested conspiracy or weakness. Thexvar raised 2 of his 4 arms for silence, and the protests immediately stopped. Morrison could see the alien commander weighing his options. Curiosity was clearly fighting with military. "Protocol and traditional Zephyrian procedures. You ask for unprecedented privilege, human," Thexvar said finally. "No conquered species has ever been granted private audience with a war master. Why should I break 1,000-year tradition for your words?" Morrison straightened his shoulders and looked directly into the alien's glowing eyes. This was the moment. That would determine whether his desperate plan had any chance of success. "Because, War Master, what I have to tell you will change how you see my species forever," Morrison replied. "And because once you understand the true nature of humanity, you will realize that this is not a negotiation between conqueror and conquered. This is a choice between alliance and mutual destruction." The silence that followed Morrison's words seemed to stretch for eternity. Every alien in the chamber was staring at the human diplomat who had just suggested that his inferior species could threaten the mighty Zephyrian hegemony. Thexvar's expression shifted through several emotions before settling into cold calculation. Morrison could almost see the alien commander's mind working through the implications of what had just been said. "Very well, human," Thexvar said at last. "You will have your private audience. But know this, if your words prove to be empty boasts, designed to waste our time, your death will serve as an example to all who would dare deceive the hegemony." Morrison nodded gravely, while keeping his relief carefully hidden. He had won the first critical battle by convincing the War Master to listen. Now he had to convince one of the galaxy's most successful military commanders that everything he thought he knew about humanity was completely wrong. The private chamber was smaller than the main meeting hall, but no less intimidating. Weapons from dozens of conquered worlds lined the walls, while holographic displays showed the current positions of Zephyrian fleets across the galaxy. "War Master." Thexvar dismissed his guards with a gesture and activated privacy shields that would prevent any outside monitoring. Morrison stood calmly in the center of the room, while the massive alien commander circled him like a predator studying its prey. Dr. Kim had been allowed to remain as Morrison's aide, but she stayed silent and motionless near the entrance. "Speak your words, human," Thexvar commanded, as he settled into a chair designed for his large frame. "You have claimed that your species poses a threat to the hegemony. This should prove entertaining." Morrison reached slowly into his diplomatic pouch and withdrew a small data device. The War Master's eyes tracked every movement as Morrison activated a holographic projector that filled the air between them with images and documents. "Before I begin, War Master, I must ask you a question," Morrison said. "In all your conquests, have you ever encountered a species that actively sought out conflict instead of avoiding it?" Thexvar's expression showed mild confusion at the unexpected question. "All species fight when cornered. Even the weakest prey. Animals will struggle before death. What relevance does this have?" Morrison nodded and activated the first set of historical records. The hologram showed ancient Earth with its blue oceans and green continents. "This is humanity's home world. What you see here is what we call a death world. The survival rate for most galactic species on this planet would be less than 10%. The images shifted to show Earth's dangerous wildlife. Massive predators stalked through jungles, while venomous creatures lurked in every environment. Natural disasters swept across continents with devastating force. The alien commander leaned forward with growing interest as Morrison explained the hostile conditions that had forged humanity. Every day on this world was a battle for survival. Morrison continued. But humans did not simply endure these conditions. We thrived in them. We became the apex predators of our entire planet through intelligence, cooperation, and absolute refusal to surrender. The hologram changed to show early human warfare. Primitive, tribes fought with stone weapons while later civilizations clashed with bronze and iron. Thexvar watched with growing unease as Morrison displayed the systematic efficiency of human conflict. Other species fight for territory or resources. Morrison explained. Humans fight for the concept of fighting itself. We have turned warfare into an art form that we study and perfect across generations. Every human child learns the history of our greatest battles and military leaders. The display shifted to more recent conflicts from Earth's bloody 20th century. Thexvar's forearms tensed as he witnessed the scale of destruction humans could inflict upon each other. Cities reduced to rubble while millions died in conflicts that raged across entire continents. This is your species fighting among themselves, Thexvar said slowly. What does this prove except that humans are violent and primitive? Morrison smiled grimly and activated new files showing space-age human military doctrine. It proves that we never stopped preparing for war, Master. When we reached the stars, we did not abandon our warrior nature. We refined it. The hologram now displayed human battle fleets in formation. Sleek warships moved with predatory grace, while fighters swarmed like deadly insects around larger vessels. Advanced weapon systems tracked multiple targets with computerized precision. Your intelligence reports told you that humanity has 30 ships in this sector, Morrison said as the display zoomed in on technical specifications. Those reports are accurate but incomplete. They show only our patrol fleet. The ships you detected were meant to be seen. Thexvar's glowing eyes widened as Morrison revealed classified information about human military capabilities. Stealth technology that rendered ships invisible to most sensors. Quantum communication networks that allowed instant coordination across vast distances. Weapons designed specifically to counter the tactics used by every known alien species. Impossible, the War Master whispered. Our scouts would have detected any major fleet movements. Our sensors are the most advanced in the galaxy, Morrison activated. Another file showing recent human technological developments. Your sensors are indeed impressive, War Master, but they were designed to detect conventional propulsion and energy signatures. Human ships use quantum displacement drives that leave no detectable trail. The display showed human vessels phasing in and out of normal space like ghosts. Advanced cloaking systems that bent light and energy around ship hulls. Weapons that fired. Projectiles at significant fractions of light speed with pinpoint accuracy across astronomical distances. We have been studying the Zephyrian hegemony for over 50 years, Morrison continued relentlessly. We know your fleet positions, your supply lines, your command structure, and your military doctrine. We know because we have been preparing for this moment since first contact protocols were established. Thexvar stood abruptly and began pacing around the chamber. His forearms moved in agitated gestures as he processed the implications of Morrison's revelations. Everything his intelligence services had told him about human capabilities was apparently wrong. You speak of preparation, the War Master said. But preparation means nothing without the will to use it. Your species sent a diplomat to negotiate instead of a fleet to fight. This suggests weakness, not strength. Morrison's expression hardened, and his voice took on a tone that made Kim shiver, despite her familiarity with the ambassador's negotiating techniques. I am here as an act of mercy, War Master. My government wanted to give your species one chance to choose a different path. The hologram shifted again to show detailed analyses of Zephyrian military tactics and fleet compositions. Every strength, and weakness of the alien forces was laid bare in clinical detail. Morrison had been right when he suggested that species accustomed to easy victories became predictable. Human strategists have identified 17 critical vulnerabilities in your current fleet formation, Morrison said calmly. Your supply ships are inadequately defended. Your command vessels rely too heavily on overwhelming firepower instead of maneuverability. Your fighter squadrons use attack patterns that are 3 centuries old. Thexvar stopped pacing and stared at the human diplomat with new understanding. The small bipedal creature standing before him was not pleading for mercy. He was delivering a professional military assessment that treated the mighty Zephyrian fleet as a tactical problem to be solved. "What are you proposing, human?" the War Master asked, though his voice suggested he already suspected the answer. Morrison deactivated the holographic display and met Thexvar's glowing gaze directly. "I am offering your species a choice between 2 futures. In the first future, you proceed with your ultimatum and discover that humans are far more dangerous than you imagined. We will fight with every weapon and tactic at our disposal until either your fleet is destroyed or ours is." The chamber fell silent except for the subtle hum of the ship's systems. Kim found herself holding her breath as Morrison delivered the most important words of his diplomatic career. "The second future involves cooperation between our species," Morrison continued. "Humans understand strength, and we respect the Zephyrian military tradition. Instead of wasting our capabilities destroying each other, we could combine them to face the real threats in this galaxy." Thexvar's expression showed a mixture of anger, confusion, and grudging respect. For the first time in his military career, he was facing an opponent who seemed genuinely confident in their ability to challenge Zephyrian supremacy. "And if we choose the first path?" the War Master asked quietly. Morrison's reply sent chills through the chamber. "Then you will learn why humans are the only species in galactic history to have never been successfully conquered." War Master Thexvar stood in stunned silence for several moments after Morrison's final words. The alien commander's 4 arms moved restlessly as he processed everything the human diplomat had revealed. His glowing eyes showed a mixture of anger, disbelief, and something that might have been fear. "Your words are impressive, human," Thexvar said finally, "but words are merely sounds in the air. The hegemony has conquered 40 star systems because we deal in actions, not empty threats. If your species possesses such magnificent capabilities, why do you hide behind diplomacy?" Morrison reached into his diplomatic pouch and withdrew a small quantum beacon. The device was no larger than his thumb, but it contained enough encrypted communication power to reach across several star systems instantly. Dr. Kim stepped back slightly as she recognized the implications of what Morrison was about to do, because, "War Master! We prefer to give our enemies a chance to make the intelligent choice," Morrison replied as he activated the beacon. "But since you require proof of human capabilities, I am happy to provide it." The beacon pulsed once with a soft blue light and then went silent. For 30 seconds, nothing happened while Thexvar watched with skeptical amusement. The alien commander was clearly expecting some pathetic display of inferior human technology. Then every alarm on the Sovereign's fist began screaming at once. Emergency lights bathed the private chamber in pulsing red illumination, while warning sirens echoed through the massive ship's corridors. Thexvar's expression changed from amusement to shock as his personal communication device erupted with frantic reports from his tactical officers. "War Master!" came a panicked voice through the communicator. "Unknown contacts are decloaking throughout the fleet. Massive energy signatures appearing on all sensors. Sir, we are completely surrounded." Thexvar activated the chamber's main display screen, and Morrison watched the alien commander's face drain of color as the tactical situation became clear. Dots of light appeared around every Zephyrian vessel as human ships materialized from what had seemed like empty space. The human fleet that revealed itself was smaller than the Zephyrian force, but positioned with mathematical precision for maximum Psychological impact. Sleek warships hung motionless in space like predators that had been patiently stalking their prey. Each human vessel was exactly where it needed to be to achieve overlapping fields of fire on multiple alien targets. How is this possible? Thexvar whispered as more ships continued to decloak. Our sensors showed nothing. Our perimeter patrols detected no fleet movements. Morrison watched the display with professional interest as human military doctrine played out exactly as planned. The ships appeared in waves, with each new group adding to the sense of overwhelming preparation and tactical superiority. Fighter squadrons materialized around carrier groups while specialized vessels revealed weapon systems the Zephyrians had never encountered. Stealth technology has been a human specialty for centuries, Morrison explained calmly. We learned early, in our development, that the most effective attacks come from directions the enemy never expects. Your sensors were looking for conventional energy signatures and drive emissions. The tactical display, updated continuously as more human vessels, revealed themselves. Massive dreadnoughts bristling with kinetic accelerators and plasma lance arrays, missile cruisers carrying enough firepower to level cities. Most disturbing of all were the small ships that seemed to phase in and out of visible space like technological. Ghost's Captain Lisa Kane's voice suddenly filled the chamber as she opened a direct communication channel to the Zephyrian flagship. Her tone was calm and professional, despite the revolutionary nature of what was happening. War Master. Thexvar, this is Admiral Susan Brooks of the Terran Defense Fleet, the voice said. Morrison noted the promotion, but understood the psychological value of having an admiral address the alien commander. I am contacting you as a courtesy to inform you that every vessel in your fleet is currently targeted by multiple human warships. The display screen switched to show Admiral Brooks on the bridge of her command ship. She was a stern-looking woman with gray hair and eyes that had seen decades of military service. Behind her, human officers worked at stations displaying targeting data for the entire Zephyrian fleet. This demonstration represents approximately 15% of our available defensive forces in this sector, Brooks continued. The colonies you have threatened are protected by weapons systems that make this fleet appear primitive by comparison. However, we prefer diplomatic solutions when possible. Thexvar found his voice, though it shook with rage and disbelief. This is impossible. Our intelligence networks would have detected any military buildup of this magnitude. No species could hide such capabilities from hegemony surveillance. Admiral Brooks smiled coldly on the screen. War Master, your intelligence networks have been feeding you exactly what we wanted them to see. For 50 years, human agents have been carefully managing the information available to your scouts and spies. Every report you received about our capabilities was designed to make you underestimate us. Morrison watched Thexvar's reaction carefully as the full scope of human deception became clear. The alien commander was experiencing the shock that came with realizing everything he believed about an enemy was carefully crafted fiction. Our analysts studied Zephyrian military doctrine extensively, Brooks continued. You prefer to attack what you perceive as weak opponents with overwhelming force. We allowed you to see exactly what you expected to see. A small, desperate human presence that would crumble under pressure. The communication screen shifted to show tactical analyses of the current situation. Every Zephyrian ship was highlighted in red while human vessels appeared as green dots surrounding them. Mathematical calculations scrolled past, showing firing solutions and projected battle outcomes. Your current fleet formation would result in 67% casualties within the first 90 seconds of engagement, Brooks said with clinical precision. Your command ships are inadequately protected, and your fighter squadrons are positioned for offensive operations rather than defensive screening. Thexvar staggered backward as the implications hit him like physical blows. His entire fleet was not just outnumbered, but outmaneuvered by an enemy that had been planning this moment for decades. Every tactical advantage the Zephyrians possessed had been neutralized through superior positioning and technology, the quantum. Displacement drives on our vessels allow for instantaneous repositioning, Brooks explained. While your ships would require several minutes to change formation, our fleet can adapt to new tactical situations in seconds. Additionally, our targeting systems have been tracking your vessels for weeks. Morrison stepped closer to the display as Admiral Brooks concluded her presentation. War Master, we did not reveal ourselves to threaten you, but to demonstrate that threats are unnecessary. Humanity has prepared for every possible scenario, including this one. Dr. Kim watched in fascination as Thexvar's worldview crumbled around him. The alien commander had built his entire career on the certainty of Zephyrian military superiority. Discovering that his supposedly invincible fleet was trapped by an enemy he had dismissed as primitive was destroying his fundamental understanding of reality. This changes nothing, Thexvar said, though his voice lacked conviction. The hegemony has resources you cannot imagine. Even if you destroy this fleet, others will come to avenge us. Morrison nodded gravely. We are counting on it, War Master. Because when they arrive, they will find that every human world has become a fortress, and every human ship has become a weapon, designed specifically to counter Zephyrian tactics. The question is whether you want to begin the bloodiest war in galactic history or explore a more profitable alternative. The chamber fell silent except for the continued wailing of alarm systems throughout the Zephyrian ship. Thexvar stared at the tactical display showing his trapped fleet while Morrison waited, patiently for the alien commander to process the new reality he faced. The silence in the private chamber stretched for nearly 5 minutes as War Master Thexvar studied the tactical display showing his trapped fleet. His forearms hung motionless at his sides while his glowing eyes processed the mathematical certainty of defeat. Morrison waited patiently, knowing that forcing the alien commander to reach his own conclusions would be more effective than any argument. You have made your point, human, Thexvar said finally. His voice carried a mixture of rage and grudging, respect that Morrison recognized from other negotiations with warrior cultures. Your species is more dangerous than our intelligence suggested. But what exactly are you proposing as an alternative? Morrison deactivated the quantum beacon and gestured toward the chairs in the center of the chamber. I propose that we discuss this as equals War Master. 2 apex predator species who have more to gain from cooperation than from mutual destruction. Thexvar considered this for several moments before taking his seat. The gesture was significant in Zephyrian culture, as it indicated willingness to engage in serious negotiation rather than simple demands for surrender. Speak your terms, the alien commander said, but understand that any agreement must benefit the hegemony. My people will not accept arrangements that diminish our strength or status. Morrison smiled as he recognized the opening he had been hoping for. That is exactly what I am offering. War Master, an arrangement that makes the Zephyrian hegemony stronger than it has ever been. Dr. Kim activated her recording equipment as Morrison began outlining his proposal. The terms he described were complex but fundamentally simple. Instead of conquest and subjugation, both species would benefit from technological exchange and mutual defense. Human stealth technology, combined with Zephyrian industrial capacity, would create warships unlike anything the galaxy has ever seen, Morrison explained. Your manufacturing capabilities are legendary, while our research and development programs have produced innovations your scientists have not yet imagined. Thexvar leaned forward with growing interest as Morrison described the potential benefits of cooperation. Advanced human weapons systems could be mass-produced in Zephyrian factories. Alien engineering knowledge could improve human ship designs and defensive systems. More importantly, Morrison continued, both our species face threats that neither could handle alone. Long-range sensors have detected at least 3 hostile civilizations beyond the current borders of known space. When they arrive, we will need every advantage we can get. The War Master's expression showed that he understood the implications immediately. The Zephyrian military had grown accustomed to fighting primitive civilizations with inferior technology. Facing opponents with capabilities equal to or greater than their own would require new strategies and weapons. "What you describe sounds reasonable in theory," Thexvar said carefully. "But the hegemony has never formed alliances with other species. Our culture is built on the principle of strength through dominance, not cooperation." Morrison nodded, understanding the cultural challenges they faced. "That is precisely why this alliance would be so powerful, War Master. Two species that have independently developed warrior traditions could teach each other new approaches to conflict." He activated a holographic display showing projected fleet compositions and tactical formations. Human ships working alongside Zephyrian vessels in combined battle groups. Shared intelligence networks that would give both species unprecedented awareness of galactic threats. "Consider the psychological impact on your enemies," Morrison continued. "The Zephyrian hegemony has always been formidable alone, but allied with humanity, you would become a force that no civilization would dare challenge." Dr. Kim watched in fascination as she saw the exact moment when Thexvar's perspective shifted completely. The alien commander had spent his entire career thinking in terms of conquest and submission. Now he was being offered the chance to gain strength through partnership. "Your proposal has merit," Thexvar admitted, "but implementation would require careful consideration. There are many in the hegemony who would view any alliance as a sign of weakness." Morrison had anticipated this objection and was ready with his response. "Which is why the alliance must be announced as a Zephyrian strategic initiative. Your military commanders will be given joint command of human forces. Your technology will be enhanced with human innovations. To outside observers, it will appear that humanity has submitted to Zephyrian leadership." The subtle brilliance of the proposal was not lost on Thexvar. Humanity would gain the protection of the galaxy's most powerful military, while the Zephyrians would acquire new technologies and capabilities. Both species would benefit while maintaining their cultural pride. "There would need to be formal ceremonies," Thexvar said, as he began working through the practical details. "Official documents establishing the hierarchy and command structure. The hegemony must be seen as the dominant partner in any alliance." Morrison smiled broadly for the first time since the negotiations began. "Absolutely, War Master. Humanity has no interest in galactic politics or territorial expansion. We simply want to ensure the survival and prosperity of our colonies." Over the next hour, they worked through the specific terms of what would become known as the Treaty of New Eden. Zephyrian forces would withdraw from threatening positions around human colonies. Joint research facilities would be established to develop new technologies. Trade agreements would benefit both civilizations, while cultural exchange programs would help bridge the gap between their societies. "I will need to consult with the War Council," Thexvar said as they finalized the preliminary agreements, "but I believe this proposal will be accepted. The strategic advantages are too significant to ignore." Morrison stood and extended his hand in the human gesture of respect and agreement. After a moment's hesitation, Thexvar reached out with one of his forearms and grasped the human's smaller hand. "There is one more thing, War Master," Morrison said as they concluded their private meeting. "I want you to understand that everything I have shown you today represents humanity's defensive capabilities. We have never shown anyone our offensive weapons." The implications of this statement sent a chill through the chamber as Thexvar realized that the overwhelming display of force he had witnessed was merely what humans use to protect themselves. What they might unleash in actual warfare remained a terrifying mystery. 3 days later, representatives from both species gathered aboard the UES Meridian for the formal signing ceremony. War Master Thexvar arrived with a full honor guard while Ambassador Morrison represented humanity with quiet dignity. The document they signed established the Terran-Zephyrian Alliance as a mutual defense and technological cooperation agreement. To galactic observers, it appeared that humanity had submitted to Zephyrian oversight. In reality, both species had gained powerful new allies who shared their warrior nature and strategic thinking. Admiral Brooks commanded the joint fleet as they departed the New Eden system in perfect formation. Human and Zephyrian ships moved together like predators who had chosen to hunt as a pack rather than compete for the same prey. Morrison stood on the bridge of the Meridian, watching the alien vessels that had arrived as conquerors departing as partners. Dr. Kim approached with a final status report showing that all human colonies were now under the protection of the most powerful military alliance in known space. "Do you think it will work long-term?" Kim asked as she watched Zephyrian fighters practicing maneuvers alongside human squadrons. Morrison considered the question carefully before responding. "Both our species evolved as apex predators, Kim. We understand strength and we respect those who can match our capabilities. This alliance will work because it benefits everyone involved." 6 months later, the first joint human-Zephyrian patrol encountered scouts from an unknown alien civilization. The newcomers had expected to find primitive settlements ripe for conquest. Instead, they discovered a military alliance that made even their advanced technology seem inadequate: the galaxy was about to learn that when apex predators choose cooperation over competition, the results can reshape the balance of power across entire star systems.